Noah Brown has officially been moved to the injured reserve list, confirmed by Dan Quinn at his press conference on Wednesday afternoon. That means there will not be at least a month of Noah Brown action out on the football field. It was like Groundhog Day for the Commanders, except instead of the Groundhog seeing this shadow and declaring 6 more weeks of winter, this is Dan Quinn in a microphone saying no 4 more weeks of Noah Brown. Guys, we're going to jump into everything. This is another live stream. Had a lot of fun doing it last night, so I figured why not double back. I got the time in the day, and we got some news to talk about. So if you guys are joining me in the live chat, make sure you spam up the like buttons. Get those like buttons pressed. Let's get this video, this stream out into the YouTube algorithms. If you are joining me in the live chat, feel free to leave your comments down below. I will make sure to pop them up on the screen. And we've already got one in here from Uncle Bozo, which is an awesome name. Love Noah B, but he's unreliable. We should have released him after last season and kept Diami instead. So disagree with Diami because Diami wanted and got $10 million. And frankly, that is just way too much from him. He's really not even outproducing Luke McCaffrey, and that's not worth $10 million. But I get the sentiment that you should have had someone of that Noah Brown sort of level as an alternative for Noah Brown himself, because he is totally unreliable, as you say. So to give you a little bit of a recap of what Dan Quinn said while he was there, he essentially said that first and foremost, he said that hindsight is 2020. And if they had known the situation they were going to be in right now, they would have put him on IR before. That's great. Well, this is the thing, Dan Quinn. When you're the head coach, when Adam Pearce is the general manager, I need you guys to be forward thinking. I need you to be aware of what the different possibilities are, but put that aside. So a reporter asked him what happened, what went wrong. And Dan Quinn said there wasn't a setback. The groin injury did not respond the way they were hoping for. So for me to have spent the last couple of days, put out a video earlier today as well, spent the last couple of days talking about how I'm losing faith in this coaching staff, how they are losing their credibility with me because their words don't match their actions, or their words are sometimes meaningless. They just repeat themselves. Their words don't hold weight. For Dan Quinn to come out there and say, well, hindsight is 2020. If we'd known what we know now, we would have put Noah on the IR. It just means less to me now. I don't trust your decision-making. I don't trust your overall command, no pun intended, of everything going on as much as I once did. Noah Brown has already been out for 4 weeks. The thing about going on IR is you're not going to play football for at least a month. He's already been out for a month. It's the same injury. DQ said there has not been a setback. It's the same injury. It always was. He's just not getting better. I'm just confused. How do you, the front office members, the medical staff, how do you not have a better read of the situation? There is a very big difference between a 4-week injury, within 4 weeks even, because if you don't put him on IR, the thought is he's returning within 4 weeks. So really we're talking 1 to 4 weeks. There's a big difference between a 1 to 4 week injury and a minimum 2-month injury. Just because he's on IR doesn't mean he's going to be back in 4 weeks either. And technically it's 4 games, not 4 weeks. But it doesn't mean he will be back in 4 games. Maybe he's back in 6. Maybe he's back in 8. My question is, if there was not a setback, and DQ has nothing to lose by lying about that part of it, if there was not a setback, how did you miscalculate his recovery timeline that greatly? And also, why were the contingency plans not in place? Why were you not more aggressive in going after Kendrick Bourne? I know it's kind of a joking matter almost at this point, because you paid all that money to Terry and you made the trade for Debo, and it's like, oh, who needs Kendrick Bourne? Kendrick Bourne has gone 2 straight games of exactly 142 receiving yards. Seriously, look it up. Against the Rams and against whoever they played last week. Was it the Buccaneers? Against the Rams and the Buccaneers. Exactly 142 receiving yards in both of those games. That's more than Terry McLaurin's career high. Could you have used someone like that, having at least been aware that there's the chance this Noah Brown situation spirals out of control? And Kendrick Bourne was in the building. He went to the 49ers, didn't sign a contract there, flew across the country to DC. You had him there, and then he ended up choosing to sign with the 49ers. I don't know what sort of offer was presented to him, but could you have not at least thought, hey, let's try to offer a little more, convince him a little more to come over here? I don't know. man, oh man, from positive outlook, if the season continues as is, we should be able to draft some young impact talent. Well, I guess there is always that. The unfortunate part is we don't have a second round pick. We're only going to have 2 picks in the top 100. We're going to have one in the teens, most likely. I think the 20s is starting to get a little bit out of reach. And then we'll have one in the 80s. But they've got to nail the picks. That's all I'm going to say, because they're not going to get many selections. Can't believe they handled the Noah Brown injury like this. What a mess. Absolutely. In fact, that is the perfect word. This is not the time to be verbose. This is not the time to dig in and pick out the most eloquent sort of language. It's a mess. That's all it is. Simple, to the point. It was a disaster from the start. Let's review the Noah Brown timeline. At the end of last season, he gets a kidney injury, which is brutal. And let me make this clear. If anybody from Noah Brown's circle is watching this, I'm not mad at Noah Brown. You can't handle that he gets injured playing a contact sport. But Noah Brown misses the final 4 games of last season and then the playoffs with a kidney injury. He comes back. At minicamp, he has this weird mystery injury that no one wants to talk about. Initial reports are that it was something to do with his back, potentially. I just found out today that it was a knee injury. I don't know if that was just me being left out the loop, but I swear nobody reported on it. So it was a knee injury during minicamp. Comes back, plays the first 2 games of the season, is out with the groin injury, does not suffer a setback. I'm going to continue to repeat this. Does not suffer a setback, and is now going to IR for at least another 4 games. I'm having such a hard time tracking this whole ordeal, and that's because the coaches in the front office don't seem to really know what's going on either, so I don't know how I'm supposed to. With all this going on, I would assume the Commanders are going to sign Treylon Burks. Now, I could be wrong. Treylon Burks is in the building today, probably right as we speak. He's a former first-round pick out of the University of Arkansas, went to the Titans, had a very disappointing career, caught 400-something yards as a rookie, 200-something as a sophomore, played either 4 or 5 games in 24, and then they cut him. He has not played for an NFL team since then. I would assume they're going to sign Treylon Burks because they saw how badly they mishandled. I don't want to say how badly, but they had Bourne in the building. It didn't work out. You see Bourne balling out for the Niners right now. And let's look at who was actually on the field for the Commanders against the Bears. I know we're talking about Noah Brown right now, and we've talked about Debo. We talked about Terry. Did you actually pay attention to who was on the field? Chris Moore was the number 1 receiver. He was out there on the first play. When the team was in 13 personnel, he was the wide receiver that was out there. Debo was injured and is going to continue to be injured. It's just going to be a pain tolerance thing. He's going to have to play through that heel problem. Probably not going to practice all that much. The other receivers, Jalen Lane and Luke McCaffrey, Ja'Cory Brooks and Tay Martin. A rookie UDFA and a guy who was in the UFL, the CFL. He was somewhere. Tay Martin was not playing a National League football, and you signed him and you elevated him from the practice squad. So you've got 2 practice squad guys, a 4th-round rookie, and a 3rd-round sophomore who got 5 snaps in week 1. None of them on passing plays. All out there as a run blocker. That's 2/3 of your receiving core. The number 1 receiver is a career practice squad guy who most Commanders fans want to be cut from the team, in Chris Moore, and then Debo, who's injured. Those are your receiving options right now. What? Why wasn't this reported earlier? Very mysterious. Yeah, the Noah Brown, I don't know if you're talking about the Noah Brown minicamp injury, but the Noah Brown groin thing. But either way, it's a whole lot of mystery. The real Noah Brown is just the friends we made along the way. That's where I'm at with this. I don't think Noah Brown was ever even a real person. In fact, I can't remember seeing him on the field. I don't know where I got this picture for the thumbnail from. I haven't seen him. I haven't seen him out there. No disrespect to Noah Brown, but just this whole situation has been botched. It's been incredibly poorly mismanaged and mishandled. Jakobi Meyers is on the trade block. I don't know if the Commanders are going to be interested in him. I would honestly hope not. I don't think it's worth parting with draft capital given the state of the team right now. 500, really difficult 4-game stretch approaching. Most of us thinking we're probably going to go 2-2 during that. You've already lost 3 tiebreakers to NFC opponents. It just doesn't seem like this team's competing this year. And Jakobi Meyers is a good player. He's not someone like, just for example, if you trade for Max Crosby, that's a guy who you know is around for years to come. You can build around him, right? Jakobi Meyers isn't that sort of player. He helps out. Sure, he's 28 years old, not old, but also not young. I just don't think it's worth it at this moment. But It does sound like the Raiders have put him on the trade block. I saw Jeremy Fowler, a couple of other reporters indicating that the Raiders are trying to move on from him. So maybe we'll see what happens there. Maybe we'll monitor that situation, but I'm kind of hoping the Commanders don't make that trade. I think signing Treylon Burks, Terry McLaurin is supposed to be back at practice this week. That will be the first time that he has practiced since his injury. With Terry back, you sign Burks, give more reps to Luke and Lane. Debo gets a little better from his injury, you would hope. Hopefully that's enough to survive, especially against a terrible Cowboys defense. Do you think – oh, wait, sorry, I've skipped some here. I see your point about Diami. Maybe we should have kept Zacchaeus then. Yes, that's the big one for me. Now, again, Zacchaeus is not an outstanding player, but you could have got him for very cheap. He was more productive than Diami was. And also, there's a need for a guy like that. Maybe you thought Debo. In a perfect world, it's Terry, it's Noah, it's Debo. Those are your guys. And then Lane and Luke are your developmental guys. You bring them along, right? But OZ was a bit of an insurance policy. He's cheap. He's someone who has had a year in the system. He knows what he's supposed to do. And with Noah's injury history, considering how he finished the year, you probably should have seen this coming. Also, just how Noah's been injured at different points in his career. You probably should have been more prepared for this, and they were not. So Zacchaeus is the big one for me there. This situation is why I never agreed with people who said to essentially trust AP and DQ blindly and never ask questions. So I totally get what you're saying here, and you are right to say that. You should never trust anybody blindly. Now, there is a bit of differentiation that's needed because a lot of people started to say this about AP during the McLaurin negotiations, and obviously we're not behind closed doors. We don't know what's being said. We don't know what Terry is demanding. We do now, but at the time we didn't. I was more so the one saying, no, you trust AP there because you're in a situation where you're building for the long term. Terry's obviously trying to squeeze money out of it. That's why this holdout is happening. But just for general principle, no, you should not blindly trust AP and DQ. And I see we're getting more viewers in here. Guys, I do appreciate you. Again, if you are joining me, make sure you hit the like button, spam it up. If you have seen any of my recent videos, if you saw my live stream yesterday, I've been speaking about having less and less trust for the coaching staff, whether it be the young players they've drafted not really developing all that well, whether it be them having the same soundboard responses to every question, whether it be them preaching these things about identity and the way they get down, the standards they hold themselves to, but then not seeing them on the field. I have lost a lot of trust for the coaching staff, and for this to break at this moment seems like, unfortunately, the perfect thing to happen because it's just terribly mismanaged is all it is. Do you think AP will continue to use his one-year deal philosophy this offseason, or do you think these veteran signings failed this year will force him to change his approach? So I think there is a bit of misconception about the one-year deals. He doesn't want to do this for the long term, and I'm not saying you specifically. I'm not saying you specifically believe this, but I think this is just a good general thing to clear up here. There's been some misconceptions about the one-year deals. Adam Peters is a smart dude. Obviously, you look at his resume, you listen to the way he talks, you look at some of the things he's done. He's a smart guy. He knows having the oldest roster with a bunch of guys with one-year deals. And on top of that, just the general instability and uncertainty about your future. When you look ahead, the Commanders, I want to say, have the most free agents in this coming summer and then the third most the year after that. That instability is not the way that you build a sustainable long-term model. That's not how you achieve long-term success. The utilization of the one-year deals was because the Commanders roster was so bad, so miserable from that Ron Rivera tenure and generations before that. So what he had to do was he had to bring in some guys who are a little older, down on their luck, a little underrated, not getting a bunch of interest from other places in the league and saying, hey, look, we can give you a starting role. We can give you some money because we've got cap money to spend. We can't give you long-term agreements, but we do want you here for 1 year, 2 years. And that's going to be enough to sign those guys. So what he did was he took this high floor versus high ceiling approach. And when you draft your rookie quarterback, that's actually probably the smart thing to do. You immediately make the team better for the short term, and then you draft and you work on building them for the long term. Well, we're now at the stage where we're coming up to, not coming up, but at the end of the season, it'll be the end of AP's first 2 years. You look around, I know they only had 5 draft picks last year, but they had 9 or 10 the year before that. You've got 6 in the upcoming draft. That's when you need to see this transition start to happen. So if we want to speak about things that are troubling, once again, Mike Sainer still regressing. That's a little bit troubling to me. Now, Johnny Newton is progressing, which is good, but I want to see Josh Connerly develop. I want to see Ben Sinnott actually get on the field and not just as a run-blocking tight end. We've already got the best one of those in the NFL. We already have John Bates for it. Let's actually see Ben Sinnott develop as a pass catcher. Let's get more reps to Luke, especially Luke has gone 4 straight weeks of making big plays. Let's continue to give reps to Luke, to Jalen Lane. Let's get Jordan McGee on the field. Let's get Javonte Jean-Baptiste back from injury, and let's see how he does. These are the things that I really want to see, and that's where my problem with the one-year approach comes into play. When we get to the end of the year, if Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu continue to monopolize those linebacker reps, and we get to the end of the year, Bobby Wagner is a free agent. And I just struggle to believe the coaching staff would look at Jordan McGee and say, hey, we know we gave you no reps your first 2 years, but yeah, you're going to take over for Bobby Wagner in your 3rd year. That sounds silly. So that's a big reason I want to see McGee actually on the field. So I know, are we comfortable handing the reins over to him? Or do we need Bobby despite his deteriorating speed? Or do we need to go sign somebody? Do we need to draft somebody? Those are the questions that I have. Knowing Debo is on a 1-year prove-it deal at this point is investing in him with a new contract worth it when we have so many other areas clearly we need. So Debo, also a big question. I brought this up on a Hot Takes episode, I think last week. It's been a topic of conversation in a couple of videos. And the simple answer to this is I don't know what Debo's future holds. I genuinely don't. I need to see what happens with Terry the rest of the year. I need to see how Luke and Lane look. I need to see the other members of the defense, because the defense is already getting, this is crazy. You're not going to believe this. The Commanders are spending the 4th most money of any team in the NFL on their defense. They are paying the 4th most money of any NFL defense to what they have right now. It's crazy because the Commanders clearly do not have the 4th best defense in the NFL. But when you're already spending that much money, you still have got this many holes. Hey, you got to spend more money. That's the only solution around it. You got to go find better players. So you already have Terry, who's going to be 31 next year, making, that's an $18.5 million cap hit, but then it rises to like 35.5 the year after. Debo's getting also, I believe, that $18.5 sort of $1 million range this season. It would depend on what Debo is demanding in his next contract, but I'll be honest, I'm going to be a little squeamish paying 2 30-plus-year-old receivers $18 million for Terry this year before it rises to 35, and then whatever Debo wants. So Debo has been the best receiver this year, and if it continues to play like that, and let's say Terry looks bad or gets injured again, maybe you get to the offseason and you're keeping Debo and trading Terry. Maybe Terry comes back and is at his best, and you retain him as the number 1, and you don't re-sign Debo. I can't give you a real answer right now because there's still so many moving parts that I have to see how the season plays out. I believe it's a great idea to put Brown on IR to get another body in for at least 3 weeks to see how Brown is doing. Also, DQ said Brown injury wasn't a setback. It's just not doing what they wanted. Yes, 100%. It is if Noah Brown cannot play, it's the right thing to put him on IR. The problem that I have with all of this is that, and I'm sorry to the people who joined me from the first 5 seconds have already heard me say this, but my biggest problem with how this has been managed is if Noah Brown suffered an injury, has not had a setback, I get it. It's not responding the way that they anticipated, but there's a very big difference. If they didn't put him on IR in the first place, it means they thought he would be back within the first 4 weeks, 1, 2, 3 weeks. There's a big difference between that. He's now been out for 4 weeks. He'll be out for a minimum, another additional 4 weeks. So that's 2 months. So there is a very big difference between an injury that lasts for less than 4 weeks and an injury that lasts a minimum of 2 months. So my frustration is, how did you not see that coming? How did you miscalculate it that poorly? And maybe after a week or two, when it wasn't responding, why did you not say, we messed up, let's go ahead and get him on IR? Why did you wait the full IR period to then actually put him on IR? I don't understand. It's good that we get another body on the roster, absolutely. Lots of season left to go, but if we end up with a high first-round pick this draft, would you want to trade down to get more picks? Of course, all depends on the players available. Yeah, it's something that I would need to see the board at the time, but this team does need picks 100%. So if we get to the end of the year, Commanders are 8-9, they're picking 14th or 15th. If you can trade back to 25 and you can pick up another second or another third round pick in doing that, I would most likely make that deal. Unless there is a legitimate stud at a glaring position of need, I would most likely do that because this team needs to plan for the future. I personally believe the quickest way to develop is real game experience. Sorry, but you have to take lumps at some point to develop these players. I could swallow that pill better. I'm with you 100%. I think a lot of fans are. And I want to be fair. We're not coaches for a reason. Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr. know more football than us. Let's be fair. But we do all seem to have this approach, and it does seem like there is a real reluctance on the coaching staff. There's actually someone who asked a really good question. It might have been John Keim from ESPN. There's someone who asked Dan Quinn a really good question today. And in his question, he was talking about some of the changes that could be made, and he said, is pride an issue in doing so? And I like that. If that was John Keim, I'm going to make sure I go back and watch it again. I like that because that's a good question to ask. Doesn't have to be the responsibility of whatever is happening with this team, but it is the right question to ask. These coaches are losing the benefit of the doubt. So why aren't we seeing some player changes? Why aren't we seeing schematic changes have happened? Schematic changes that work have not. So is it pride? Is it stubbornness? Are you not teaching the players correctly? Is the communication breaking down? Are the players making the mistakes? These are the questions that need to be asked, especially when you have this Noah Brown situation mismanaged so poorly. Speaking on some more injury stuff. So Drake Jackson, the new signing defensive end, he's officially signed with the Commanders in case you missed it, former second-round pick. He, of course, because we can't seem to get out of our own way, he has a knee injury currently. He didn't suffer it when he signed. He signed the deal with a knee injury. He's working his way back. I don't really know what his timeline is or when he's going to be playing. Good news, the team opened the 21-day for Jonathan Jones. As someone who has torn my hamstring before, whenever I hear someone gets a hamstring injury or whenever I see it happen, I first of all, I feel the pain. Some people are secondhand criers. I'm like a secondhand injury feeler. I felt the pain run up my hamstring, but it's good that Jonathan Jones, who did go to IR, I believe he only missed 4 games, or maybe it was 5, but it's good that he's making this quick turnaround, and hopefully he'll be back on the field relatively soon. He has to be back out there within 3 weeks. Don't know exactly when it will be. Sam Cosmi is also entering the 3rd week of his return to play, I believe. He can come back in this game, or he can come back in the one after that. He had a week and a half ago, I think they opened the window. He had 2 days of practice that week. Last week was a full week of padded practice. DQ said he looked good. My guess is he's on the active roster. He does dress for this Cowboys game. That doesn't mean he's going to start. It might still be Andrew Wiley, but I do think you'll see Sam Cosmi in a uniform in some capacity this weekend. Going back to the comments here. I believe JD5 with an elite number 1 target can be a 30 to 40 passing TD guy in the NFL. But with what this staff is trying to do schematically, what do you think the priority additions should be on both sides? Well, so again, there's a lot of forward-thinking questions here, and I'll be honest, I'm not fully prepared to give a true answer to that just because there are so many things that are changing right now. So many players are free agents, so many young guys available. Are they going to get on the field? Are they not? I can tell you right now, and this is something that I've said, if I'm in charge of making the Commanders' first pick in the NFL draft, I'm taking a defensive player pretty much no matter what. Unless it's a massive reach at every position, like if they're picking 15th and the first 14 picks are entirely defense, maybe I would go receiver there. But if we're just assuming this plays out normally, my number 1 position I would draft, I would go linebacker. I would go edge rusher after that, and then I would take somebody in the secondary, either cornerback or safety. I do believe a receiver needs to be drafted in 2nd, 3rd, 4th round, and you need to continue to stockpile these guys. Now, again, we like what we've seen from Luke. It's a little frustrating he's not getting more volume, but we'll see how he develops. We'll see how Jalen Lane develops. But you look at a team like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, look at what they had. They already had Mike Evans. They already had Chris Godwin, who they re-signed as a free agent despite him breaking his foot. They already had McMillan. They already had Shepard, who I believe they released, right? And then they go and they draft Emeka Egbuka with their first pick, and then they double back and they draft Tez Johnson with a mid-round pick. Tez Johnson, who was highly productive at Troy, I think it was, and then Oregon. Obviously, that's taking an example of the best team in the league, but it is a good example of why you constantly reinvest at those positions, which are A, replaceable, but B, also plentiful in the draft. Your running backs, your receivers. It's an example of why you continue to reinvest in those positions. So I wouldn't target a receiver in the first round, but that's almost a non-negotiable for me at this point. 8 players you would want from the Jets. I swear I've seen 100 articles about how every single Jets player is on the market right now. Players, absolutely. But again, guys, we are at a position where the big name players that are going to be on the trade market that can change a team, I'm not currently ready to make those trades for the Commanders. If they were we played 6 weeks of football. If they were 5-1, 6-0, then I would say yes, clearly in the Super Bowl window. I think this is an 8-9, 9-8 team right now. So if you're asking me to part with significant assets to get this deal done, I wouldn't do it. Now, if we can include a Deron Payne, if we can include a Marshawn Lattimore, if we include a Brandon Coleman, and it's a good player, someone who's not old, coming back the other way, my tone changes. If you're going to tell me there's a world in which Sauce Gardner or Garrett Wilson gets done reasonably, then I would say sure. And the Jets do have good players, but more so I'm just waiting for free agency more than anything. Are you concerned that with a top draft pick that this coaching staff will not be developed? I am. Absolutely, 100%. Jayden has seen some development occur, obviously. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to take that down. Jayden's developed, but Mike Sainer still, again, he's regressing. A lot of Commanders fans said he was great as a rookie. I was always the one to push back on that and say, no, Mikey had good moments. Overall, he was probably about average, but he was in a difficult situation with a bad secondary, playing not in his natural position. So if you add all those things up, it's like grading someone on a curve. Imagine you're back in college and you get graded on a curve. Your 60 is really a 75. That's kind of how I felt with Mikey. And then I was waiting for him to get moved back inside, everything to work so well. Lattimore's over here, new second round corner. Trey Amos is over there. Everything works well. Mikey looks worse this year than he did last year, and he's in his natural position. So I am worried about that. Johnny Newton, I said this earlier, I've been really impressed. One of the big quiet stories of the season is Johnny Newton looks to be growing with every passing week to me. So he's someone I do have my eye on, but Jordan McGee can't get on the field. We haven't seen Kay Madrano for a single snap. Ollie Cajo, I get it, he's a UDFA, but he did make the active roster or the 53-man roster. We haven't seen him. So to answer this question, my concern that a top draft pick with this coaching staff won't get developed, I'm not declaring that's going to happen, but it is a legitimate concern, 100%. I'm afraid of seeing how Andy Reid dissects this defense. Oh, I can only imagine they're going to do the spinny huddle thing. There's going to be a double orbit motion with a reverse pass to Tyquan Thornton, who laterals to Travis Kelce. Like, there's going to be some nonsense going on, and they're going to pan to Joe Jr. in the booth, and you're going to see him ripping his imaginary hair out. Some other notes to go through before, actually really only one more big one. I think I've hit on everything else. Dorrance Armstrong injured his hamstring in the game on Monday. That's so much fun. We just can't stay healthy. Now, he did play through the game, and I think he actually got his sack after he injured his hamstring. He will do the walkthrough today, which is what the team is doing at practice, so that's a good sign. DQ said that the team's going to get to more of their speed work tomorrow. That's going to give a better indication of if Armstrong's going to be available to play Dallas. You would hope that he is. Not only has he got 6 sacks in 6 games, he's the best edge rusher on this team. He's going against his former team. You'd hope he'd be a little bit juiced up for that. But if he doesn't, if Dorrance Armstrong can't go, you're telling me the edge room is going to be, and I want to make sure I get this right, the edge room is going to be Von Miller, Jacob Martin, Preston Smith, and Jalen Holmes. Those 4 guys, that's nightmare fuel. That's really bad. The Cowboys offense, that I know they're Cowboys and we hate them, but let's not lie about them. The Cowboys have one of the best offenses in the NFL. Dak Prescott is playing at an MVP level. George Pickens, the last couple of weeks, has been on fire. And CeeDee Lamb, according to Jerry Jones, CeeDee Lamb could be coming back this week. Commanders already give up the highest yards per completion in the NFL. Imagine if their pressure rate, which is like top 3, top 5 in the league, imagine if your edge rushers are Jacob Martin, Von Miller, Jalen Holmes, and Preston Smith. You're going to have the worst edge rushers in the NFL with a secondary allowing the highest yards per completion. I was looking at some betting odds for this game earlier. The points total for the Commanders-Cowboys game is at 55.5, I believe. Let me double check that, because I want to get it right. Okay, so it's down 1 point to 54.5, but that is a very high number. The average is normally, I would say, about 43 to 44 or so. In fact, let me just read them out for the week. I'm not going to tell you the teams, but these are just the numbers. 43, 44, 43, 45, 46, 39. That's Dolphins, Browns. 42, 41, 48, 40, 44, 47. You got a 52 with Bucks, Lions. 40, 43, and then you get to the Commanders at 54.5. So The odds makers are telling you there's going to be fireworks on offense in this game, and they're probably not wrong. Before you leave, are you able to explain what the defense is trying to do from watching? I'm not sure what advantages they're trying to capitalize off. So, yeah. So they started the year by saying, and obviously this depends on the situation and plays and obviously everything, but I can try to speak from a broader perspective. So they came into the season saying they're going to be a primary cover 1, cover 0 man coverage team. They quickly found out that they were getting beat with motion, and lining up Luvu and Wagner in man and match coverage wasn't going well because they don't have the speed, and some of the technique stuff was going wrong. Lattimore was getting cooked. So they switched off of that. They became a primary cover 3 team. If you look at their coverage frequency, I want to say they call cover 3 on 30% of defensive snaps, and that's the highest of any shell. So they're still using a single high safety, just like they would with cover 1, just like they practiced all offseason, but now we're going into cover 3. What they're primarily trying to do a good job of is they're trying to use slants on the defensive line, not just stunts and twists and pass rushing, but also slants. Like, imagine Javon Kinlaw, if he's lined up at a 3 technique, so he's lined up over the guard, he's going to loop to the outside and get to the tackle, or he's going to loop inside and get to the center. He's not going in a straight line. They've been doing that a lot to slow down the running game, and it worked really well for the first 5 weeks of the season, the Bears game notwithstanding, obviously. So that's what they were doing in the run game, and obviously you've got Bobby Wagner. They're trying to funnel things up the middle to him. Bobby Wagner is still amazing at tackling. He has, I think, the lowest missed tackle rate of his career. Other stuff isn't going great, but as far as what he can do with the running game, that stuff works. And then in the passing game, initially when they were using man coverage, there were a lot of blitzes. They became a little predictable, and they were giving up too many big plays. So they started running some sim pressures. They would still stick with that double mug look. But for example, there was a play against who was it? It might have been the Falcons. And a lot of fans got frustrated because they saw Dorrance Armstrong dropping out into coverage. I can't remember if it was a cover 2 or a cover 3. I think it might have been a cover 2. But what had happened on that play was the Commanders had 6 guys up at the line of scrimmage. Matter of fact, I think it was the Falcons because I remember the play. Penix scrambled out to the left. They had 6 guys up on the line of scrimmage. The Falcons had a tight end in, and they kept their running back into block. So they had 7 blockers, only 3 eligible receivers. And the Commanders with 6 guys on the line, they dropped Armstrong out, and they dropped someone else. I think Wagner or Luvu. So they dropped them out. So it was only a 4-man rush, but they had forced the Falcons to keep in more blockers than they wanted to. Now, Penix ended up scrambling for a first down, but that's the stuff they're trying to do. If they can't generate pressure off of these man coverage looks, they're going to try to disguise it, get some sim pressure, some fire zones, things like that. And that's how they're trying to manufacture it. The problem is now you're dropping Frankie Luvu into coverage on about 65 to 70% of snaps, and he's not a coverage guy. And Bobby Wagner, while he does have good coverage instincts, he doesn't have the legs to cover ground. So when you think about the fast middle linebackers of the league, you have Divine Diablo and Edgerrin Cooper and Zach Bond. You can run quarters, you can run cover 2, they can run the pole, you can do all of this stuff because they have so much speed in the middle of the field. Your zones aren't going to get stressed as much as you would, or as they would, if slower players were there. Well, the Commanders don't have speed. So if you've got 2-3 guys flooding the intermediate area, they're just not able to get around. They're not able to cover that much ground. So that's where the problem they're running into with zone coverage. But then as soon as they go man, they give up a big play. They don't stick with their man. Quan Martin misses a tackle. Marshawn Lattimore gets picked off by pre-snap motion. Bobby Wagner can't cover Bijan on a rail route. Like, there's just a lot of limitations with this team. So everybody gets frustrated with Joe Witt, and I totally understand why. But the roster he's working with is very limited as well. That was off of a bit of a tangent. Any player off the top of your head you want to trade in free agency if they hit the market, since we don't have much to trade with right now? As far as players on the Commanders, you mean? Like guys that I would trade for? That I wouldn't mind parting ways with? Let me pull up the roster real quick. So players that the Commanders have under contract who could be valuable trade targets that I wouldn't mind giving up. I'm going to say Daron Payne. Now, this is not a criticism because Payne's been really good this year. That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying is he carries a cap hit of I want to say $29 million next year. So you could get off of him. He still has value. He is 28 years old. He'll be 29 next season. So still not old, but not young, but still young enough that a contender would want him. They would be able to take on the cap hit. You would hopefully get players to build for the future back. So if they end up keeping Payne, Payne's played well this season. It's not like I'm angry with him or anything like that. Lattimore is a guy I've talked about as well. I don't know how teams view him. I don't know if they view him as a negative asset. I think it's interesting that whatever team gets him could decide if they want to keep him or cut him for no penalty. I don't know if that's attractive to them because it gives them some flexibility. Although that would be a midseason trade, not an end-of-season trade. And then the other big one, which I've talked about, is Brandon Coleman as well. And as I've said, I know I put out a whole video about this, and a lot of people got frustrated with me. The best version of Brandon Coleman represents something awesome, but the real version of Brandon Coleman, the one we see right now, can't get on the field. And when we're talking about, do we trust this staff to develop players or not? Well, do we trust them to develop Brandon Coleman, who's currently inactive? And don't forget, when Sam Cosmi comes back, one of these offensive linemen's not dressing. Is it going to be Andrew Wiley? Is it going to be Nick Allegretti? Is it going to be George Fant? We'll wait and see. Dak will probably complete every pass on Sunday. Yeah, it's not going to be good. I genuinely believe Jayden Daniels is just going to have to put on the cape, and it's going to be at least 30 points for each team, and we're just going to see what happens. Last team with the ball probably wins the game. Only good thing about this team is Cliff and JD5. They don't retain Cliff, LMAO. It's over. Yeah, Cliff's weird. I say that respectfully. Cliff's weird because Cliff's not excellent, but he's good. And he's kind of a guarantee right now. And I've gotten a little frustrated. I was actually really frustrated with Cliff during the first 2 games of the season. Some of the run stuff, the balance was really off. The passing concepts as well. It was like only deep shots or everything close to the line of scrimmage. I've really appreciated the last 2 games Cliff has opened up the intermediate and deep passing concepts because Jayden's been really accurate on those plays. And then even when he doesn't get them, he's been able to scramble effectively. And I've longed for those more 10, 15, 20-yard attempts. Again, you saw a lot of them against the Chargers, a couple of them on Monday. So that was a shining light, and I'm hoping to see more of that moving forward. I don't want to sound overly critical, but I've seen grade schoolers with better form recovering a fumble than Andrew Wiley. That's a good question. Do they have drills on how to recover fumbles? Like if you're a lineman or a linebacker, a defensive tackle, someone who doesn't really touch the ball, are you taught how to actually just dive on it? That'd be funny. We got a couple rolling in here from DC Slim. Luvu's trash. Wagner's trash. Casey just cut a good wide receiver. Who did Kansas City cut? Chiefs release wide receiver. Let me go check this out. I'm not hip. Jason. Are you talking about Jason Brownlee? I think you have to be talking about Jason Brownlee. And I'll be honest, I don't know anything about Jason Brownlee. Let me see here. Anyone familiar? Let me know in the comment section so I can read up on it. Jason Brownlee, 1 year with the Jets in 23, 1 in 25 in college. In 2022, had 891 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns for Southern Mississippi. Let's see. Bullseye. Okay, so I guess we are talking to Brownlee. I don't know anything about him, but maybe I need to go look him up. Thank you for putting me on. I'm going to go check him out. I said this target free agency, not trade. Oh, sorry. Okay, so to go back on everything we were talking about beforehand. Free agent targets, I'll need to look. To be honest, I haven't taken a look at it. Not trying to be sour grapes, but I see 1 or 2 possible wins. Miami and the Giants, not sure where any more will come from. As far as guarantees, yes. There are not many guarantees left on the schedule. And the thing with the Dolphins is, too, I always call international games the great equalizer because it's like you never know what's going to happen. I feel like underdogs always cover the spread. They win outright a lot of the time. There's weird stuff. And this isn't just an international game. The NFL is somewhat accustomed to going to London at this point. This is in Spain. First time over there. So it should be a guarantee. It would be a guarantee if it was at home. Heck, it might be a guarantee if it was in Miami. But in Spain, I don't even know if I can call that a guarantee. The Giants, even though it's at the Meadowlands, I do think we will beat them. The easiest game on the rest of the schedule is probably at Vikings. And that's terrifying because the Vikings won 14 games last year, and they're the best coached team in the NFL, in my opinion. For anyone who doesn't know, the upcoming schedule for the Commanders this weekend, we are at the Cowboys. After that, it's Chiefs on Monday night in Kansas City, in Arrowhead. Then on a short week, we host the Seahawks on Sunday Night Football. Then you got the Lions after that. You go 2-2, you're 5-5, tough. Then you have the Spain game against Dolphins, bye week, home for the Broncos, at Vikings, at Giants, Eagles, Cowboys, at Eagles. Very, very difficult schedule from here on out. Front office dismantled the brotherhood and the team is suffering because of it. Okay, I believe we had a conversation about this in the comments, right? If not, you were saying the exact same thing someone else said. This conversation, I told you I'm not ready to agree with you right now. I will see how everything turns out at the end of the season, but I do see why you would say that. I think Terry McLaurin is the best example of it, because when you say they dismantled the brotherhood, if I am thinking of the right person, we did have this conversation. You had brought up Dante Fowler tweeting out that he was being disrespected after he didn't get a contract. Players are going to say that. If a guy goes out there, has 10 sacks, feels like he earned a new deal, and he's not really offered one, he's going to say he felt disrespected. I don't think that's a good example of it. I would use Terry McLaurin as an example, because in not getting a deal done for the entire summer, whether that was Terry's fault, whether that was Adam Peters' fault, good memory, that was me. Okay, I thought so, yeah. I would say Terry McLaurin's the best example of that, because in him not being there, whoever you want to assign blame to, him not being there meant his leadership was not there. He was not able to mentor Luke and Lane, the younger receivers. He was not there to be the general spirit of the team, just like he had been for the 5-6 seasons beforehand. And now when I see this team on the field not really having much fight to them, they didn't have fight against the Packers. I just feel like there's certain moments where he, as bad as last year's team was, and this almost speaks more to the defense at times, as bad as the defense was last year, they did have their moments every once in a while. I find myself looking for those moments with this team more than I did last year. I'm not even sure that the Giants will be an easy win with how well Dart is playing. Yeah, it just depends on what version of him shows up. Dart looks like a typical promising rookie to me. He's going to make some really good plays. He's going to do things like beat the Chargers, beat the Eagles, but then he's also going to do things like lead the Giants down to New Orleans, where they lose and commit turnovers on 5 straight possessions. Yeah, as long as you get the ups, that's a good sign for a rookie. It means you've got a guy and you can coach him up from there, but you are going to get the lows. So we'll see which one that we get. Dan, Cliff, and Joe got to go. If they do fire DQ, I would be interested. I would imagine both coordinators would go as well, and they'd completely clean the deck. Don't think it's going to happen, though. And then maybe there's a chance if they fire DQ, they promote Cliff to head coach. I don't know how that would work out. I think the most likely to go of these is Joe. I actually think DQ is then the next most likely to go. I think Cliff is the safest of these 3. You can only dream of what life would be like if Jayden had a quality team around him. He is truly fantastic. He is. You're absolutely right. And I don't want to be unfair to some of the other young quarterbacks and fan bases and fans of those quarterbacks who have struggled with this. Like, the Bengals have said this about Joe Burrow. The Texans have said this about CJ Stroud. You've had this before. The Colts would say it about Andrew Luck. You've had this before, but it is unfortunate we find ourselves in this spot. Mahomes with the Chiefs didn't go through it. Josh Allen with the Bills didn't really go through it. Lamar with the Ravens didn't really go through it. Lamar, I guess, didn't have receiving options early on in his career, but he did have a line. He did have a defense. He did have a running game. He did have a good head coach. So, yeah, it is frustrating we find ourselves in this situation. How many more good off seasons do you think it'll take to build a team capable of being an annual playoff participant? I would say if you nail this offseason, the draft picks you've made so far work. I mean, the Commanders could still make the playoffs this year. They could make the playoffs next year. As far as what do I look at and say, there's basically no chance they miss the playoffs. I think it has to be a good offseason, a good draft, and then probably one more after that. And then Jayden would be at the end. I think he'd be on the 5th season of his career, 5th year of his deal. That's where I could say you fully cleared the decks. The 35-year-olds are out of the picture. Your young guys you've drafted, you've developed. Now they're making Pro Bowls. Now they're making all-pro teams. That's what I would say. Dart will get himself killed if he keeps playing that style when he runs. 100%. He looks like a running back when he's out there. The defensive coach of Minnesota is a great replacement. Oh, if we were to fire everybody, Brian Flores? Absolutely. This is funny you said that. So I actually asked, I'm in a group chat with some buddies to play fantasy football with, and I asked them all, who is the number 1 coach out there who's not a head coach who you would choose to be your head coach if you were the GM of a franchise? And pretty much everyone said Brian Flores. He was at the top of my list. I also got to say, the Cowboys, I don't know if he's I forget if he's their offensive coordinator or like their run game coordinator or something like that. But I know it's a really young dude. The Cowboys are supposed to have the worst running game in the NFL this year. They actually have been really good. And wherever he was before, he did a really good job there as well. So he might be an up-and-comer to keep an eye on. I hate the doom and gloom in this fan base. Going to Twitter, YouTube comments is a shit show. I never expected us to do as good as we did last year. This is the second year of the rebuild. We're not a Super Bowl team. Well, the whole thing is just perspective. When Dan Quinn and Adam Peters took over, they said that this was not a rebuild. This was a recalibration. And we know that they were full of it. They were just trying to kind of tell everyone to believe in the team. But the fact is they did get to the conference championship last year. They did aggressively make trades. They did trade 4 picks for Laramie Tunsil. They traded 3 for Lattimore. They traded for Debo. They did make these moves and just operate in a way that says, hey, we're here to compete for the short term. We can talk about being in a rebuild, and obviously we are. We're still a year and a half removed from being 4-13. But we did also go sign veterans. We did trade for veterans. And that's what contending teams do. As I was talking about earlier with, I believe, Tim, you kind of had to do that in a certain way just because there was so little talent on the roster beforehand, but it still happened. So it is a matter of perspective. On one hand, you can say, yes, this is a 4-13 team that needs a rebuild, but other people are justified as well in saying this is a team that was one of the Final 4 last season, and you upgraded the roster. You drafted Trey Amos. You traded for Laramie Tunsil. You traded for Debo. You made these moves to make your roster better. So why has the quality of play gotten significantly worse? I think both perspectives are valid. Wagner would be better as a linebacker coach or defensive coordinator than a player at this point, in my opinion. His leadership is great. He just doesn't have the athleticism to be on the field much longer. Yeah, I remember in an interview, Bobby said that he didn't want to coach, not even coach now. I don't think he ever wants to coach. Maybe after he retires for a couple of years, his opinion will change. I get the sentiment behind this. I'm not going to disrespect Bobby and say that he can't play in the NFL. He can still be a good linebacker. It's just he does have limitations. And the problem with him specifically, his intelligence, his leadership is almost a negative in this way because he is the signal caller, because he is the captain, the leader on the field. It's not like you could play him really 50-50 and it be a seamless transition. So Bobby's going to have the green dot and go off the field. Then McGee's going to come on the field and McGee's going to make the calls. Then he's going to go off and Bobby's. It's just weird. If Lulu was the one making calls, it would work because you could just swap Bobby and McGee and everything would be fine. But it's a weird situation where his strengths actually work to his detriment, or at least the general detriment of the team at this point. The coaches on this team are the reason we won't succeed. A bunch of losers. Hey, I mean, the Commanders, lest we forget, when this team was first built, when Adam Peters hired the coaches, the ESPN did their grades, and the Commanders were given 31st of 32. That's where they were ranked. Last year, they proved a lot of people wrong. I don't think they're 31st, but as this year goes on, we are going to learn more about them, see how they handle adversity, see how they adapt on the fly, because it's not been a great start to the year, and we all know that. Guys, I think we are coming up to the end here. I see no more comments, but had an hour-long stream yesterday, had 50 minutes today. Really didn't expect myself to ever do any stream when I started the YouTube channel, but it's been a lot of fun, and I appreciate all of you joining me here. So if you are here, I know this stream is ending, but please do hit the like button if you enjoyed. It helps out the channel, helps me grow. Hit the subscribe button if you guys are new around here. Got daily videos coming out, maybe daily live streams now as well, if this continues like this. Guys, I'm going to head out of here. Appreciate you all joining me. Have a great day, and I'll make sure to catch you in the next one.